Stick to our spending plans for next year, which will see a 2.2% real terms increase. This will allow more time for the private sector to invest and create jobs, ensuring that the recovery will continue and strengthen. It will also mean that we can maintain the improvements we put in place for our frontline services over the last 13 years. Improvements which have seen 118 new hospitals, 1,600 new schools and tens of thousands of extra doctors, nurses, police and teachers. Now, in December, I set out how we will protect public spending on those frontline public services on which we depend. And this enabled us to guarantee NHS health checks every 5 years for the over 40s, referral to a cancer specialist within 2 weeks, extra maths and English tuition for all 7 to 11-year-olds who fall behind, a place in education or training for every 16 and 17-year-old, and maintaining funding for police officer numbers. And I can confirm that we will honour these guarantees. I can also confirm that we will allocate over £4 billion from next year's reserve to fund operations in Afghanistan. I know the whole House will want to join me again in paying tribute to the courage, commitment and professionalism of our armed forces who represent all that is best in our country. Mr Deputy Speaker, we can only offer these guarantees for frontline services and deliver our plan to reduce the deficit through continued reform and efficiencies and holding down increases in spending overall. If unemployment is lower than predicted, as has already been the case, the cost of paying benefits will be lower. Debt interest costs have also been lower than expected. Even so, it's clear that the next spending settlement from 2011 onwards will be very tough, the toughest for decades. Even before the spending review has been held, we have already identified cuts and efficiencies of over £20 billion through limiting pay, reducing programmes and making savings. Mr Deputy Speaker, in December I set out savings of £4.4 billion in the public sector pay and pensions by 2012-13. There will be reductions in the pay bill for senior civil servants. Overall, we intend that public pay settlements will be held at a maximum of 1% for the 2 years from 2011, and will also implement reforms to ensure public pensions are affordable. But second, we need to identify savings across every part of the public sector by delivering services more efficiently. They will be tough and challenging, but they are achievable. We've already saved £26.5 billion from departmental budgets between 2005 and 2008, but we need to go further. At the pre-budget report, we committed government departments to find over £11 billion of new savings through reforms without damaging the frontline services. And departments will publish today details of how they will make these savings from 2011 as we work towards the spending review. We will also find savings by relocating civil servants from expensive London offices to elsewhere in the country. In the long term, I am announcing that the number of civil servants in London will be reduced by a third, and as a first step, 15,000 posts will be relocated within the next 5 years. And I can tell the House today that 1,000 posts in the Ministry of Justice will be moved out of central London, saving £41 million. Third, on top of these savings, we have already identified £5 billion worth of cuts in specific programmes announced in December, and I can confirm that these will go ahead as planned. Fourth, it's always been our goal to reform the benefit system so that it makes work pay. The current approach to calculating housing benefit pays very high rates to a small number of tenants in expensive areas, and this discourages employment and it's unfair. So I can tell the House that we are taking steps to address this. So from October next year, the most expensive properties across the country will be excluded from the housing benefit calculation in each area. And this, in addition to measures to prevent fraud and error, will save nearly £250 million a year by the end of the forecast period. Mr Deputy Speaker, that's over £11 billion from greater efficiencies, £5 billion from scaling back or cutting lower priorities, and over £4 billion from reducing the cost of public sector pay and pensions. In total, £20 billion worth of savings to reduce borrowing, protect frontline services even before the spending review. And there's one other area which can help reduce government debt. I announced at last year's budget a programme to secure £16 billion through asset sales, and we're making considerable progress. On the student loan book, we're looking to appoint advisors in the next couple of months to develop a sales proposal. On the tote, we're on track to launch the sales process this summer. and we're also finalising options on the sale of the Dartford crossing. And these proceeds from these sales will make a significant contribution to reducing debt. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the third element of our plan to reduce borrowing is economic growth. As we've already seen in the enhanced tax receipts since December, a stronger economy can make a major contribution to reducing borrowing. The raw materials to fuel this growth are here in abundance. No country has more talent. We remain the world's sixth biggest manufacturing nation. We have world-class industries, advanced manufacturing, bioscience, aerospace, the creative sector, whose products are in demand across the globe. We've worked hard to create the environment where this ingenuity and entrepreneurial flair can thrive. Doubling investment in our science base, low interest rates and inflation, the lowest rate of corporation tax in the G7. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our competitors are not standing still. The opportunities and jobs of the future will come from the new markets and new locations, particularly in the East. We can't take growth for granted, and again we have a choice. We can sit back and hope for the best, or we can recognise the role government can play in providing a launchpad for businesses to succeed. Of course, it is the private sector, with its drive and ingenuity, which will create jobs and prosperity. But just as government has been critical in reducing the severity of the recession, government also has a crucial role in building our country's strengths. Together with the Business Secretary, I've been working to find effective ways to enable small business to grow, to invest in key national infrastructure and skills, as well as to promote research, innovation and enterprise. Mr. Deputy Speaker, access to finance is vital for small businesses. It was understandable that banks reduced lending to repair their balance sheets, but it caused problems for companies and the wider economy. In return for support during the financial crisis, we've made banks accept their obligations to lend more. In the last 12 months, RBS and Lloyds, which make up half the market, have lent £38 billion to small and medium-sized businesses. But as recovery gets underway, we need to ensure that viable SMEs continue to get the credit that they need. So over the next year, I have agreed that RBS and Lloyds will provide a total of £94 billion of new business loans, nearly half of it going to SMEs. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are still companies who are being unfairly denied credit and feel they are powerless to challenge that decision. I want to change this position and give them the right to have their credit complaints properly examined. To help them and the economy, I will set up a new service to fast-track credit complaints from SMEs. This new credit adjudication service will examine lending decisions to see if they are fair. It will have legal powers to enforce its judgments if they believe credit has been wrongly denied. But ultimately, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the best way to open up credit for business is to boost competition. We've already made sure that the restructuring of Lloyds and RBS, which will see